It was a tough week at Lambeau West as the Pack definitely did not have their best showing. All is not lost, however, as the Green and Gold still hold the top spot in the NFC North. We'll chat about the shocking loss against the Chargers, along with your great feedback, next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
And I guess yesterday shows why you don't play NFL football in American mini stadiums. It's also why teams should travel out west more than a couple of days early. I'm Wayne Henderson, and I just can't fathom the Packers losing in Los Angeles again. It's inconceivable.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Yes, this is episode 190 of the Packers Fan Podcast. We are closing in on 200. This episode was recorded on November 4th, 2019. I'm Scott Clark, and I sure am regretting picking Green Bay in my survival pool this week. There's $2,000 I'll never see. On this episode, our Packers were on TV yesterday. That's about all we can say about that. We're going to talk about what needs to change as we head back home for our last game before the bye, and we'll also have results from our weekly Twitter and Facebook poll question.
And the results were shocking, I tell you, shocking. How is it week 10 already? Our Green Bay Packers have one more game before their bye week, and it's at Lambeau Field. We'll be previewing that Panthers at Packers game later in this episode. We'll also be sharing your listener feedback because that's what makes the Packers Fan Podcast the show by fans and for fans. Episode show notes will be at PackersFanPodcast.com and right inside the details area of your podcast player that you're listening to us on right now.
Let's go ahead and jump right into the highlights, which are very few and far between for this game. Davante Adams was back. It was good to see him back on the field and seeing him get some catches. However, it was almost painfully obvious that he was back, which sounds like an oxymoron, but Rodgers seemed to have forgotten that he has a slew of other weapons in his arsenal because he kept throwing to Adams so much. I get it. He's back. He's your biggest weapon, but you've got a lot of really awesome guys out there. And I feel like our offense has been successful when they are keeping the defense guessing instead of going to that same target all the time. Do you agree?
I am actually going to agree with you 100% this week. Just because Davante Adams is back doesn't mean that like 70% of the passes have to go that direction.
I agree, because it did not work out well for them at all.
No. Things have been rolling along really, really well with all of the other people stepping up. And I think finding a better mix of putting Davante Adams back into the show would be the way to go. But I think the Packers will learn a lot from this game.
You better.
The other highlight, as far as what I could see, was we got out of this game without any new injuries of note.
That's a good point. If there was nobody hurt, that means we're just getting rested up for next week against Carolina.
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that is as far as the highlights go for this game.
Yes.
And I don't even know if those are highlights considering we were being pretty negative about it the whole time there. But let's move on to the lowlights here. Matt LaFleur told CBS at halftime that the team arrived late to the stadium and described them as, quote, playing tired, unquote, so far today. This is at the half. So they'd get there earlier. I don't understand why that's the thing. Get there earlier than they needed to. This really felt as if they expected this to be an easy win coming off the big one against Kansas City. And in my mind, this pretty much negates that win in my eyes.
Whoa. I don't know if I'd go quite that far.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the Chargers game should have been an easy win for us.
Oh, yeah.
It should have been an easy win. We haven't lost to them since, 97 or something like that? It's been a long time since we've lost to the Chargers. And we just came off this awesome win against the Chiefs, which I expected us to lose. And I expected them to win this one. So I feel like we just got a flip-flop. So you take that as a positive or a negative, I guess, in my mind. Because if we had lost the Kansas City game and won the Chargers game, we have the same record as we do right now. So at the end of the day, we're still at the top of the division.
Amen to that. Yeah, there were so many odd little things that played into this game, and even Aaron Rodgers is not blaming these things as the reason. Obviously, nothing to do with the refs this week because it was so lopsided. But, the arriving to the stadium a little later than they planned, I don't even really know, or at this point care, what was behind that. But at the same time, they're going into this really strange little stadium. And then, of course, even in California, we did change our clocks this past weekend, even though we voted to no longer do that. But I guess it takes a while for that to kick in. So that just makes everything weird. So it was like a 4:25 Central Time kickoff for them, even though it was 3:25 and 1:25 out here west. And I had heard somewhere that they also had trouble getting their flights to LA on time. So they were running a little bit behind the whole time. None of those are the reasons we lost. It might have impacted their outlook, but these are highly paid professionals, and they should be able to overcome all of these little obstacles.
Somebody from our Facebook group, I think it might have been Scott Bors, mentioned that he showed a really weird stat. It said we've lost the last 7 games where it was on a day when the time changed because of daylight savings time.
I saw that.
My vote is to turn that off. I'm sure, I'm not saying it was a factor, but as superstitious as I am sometimes, let's just go ahead and get rid of daylight savings time because, let's be honest, it's super dumb anyway.
That's for sure. Or at bare minimum, talk to the people scheduling and make sure that our bye week is that week.
Hey, I'll take that. That's fine.
It'll be, giving in a bit. Now, as far as the play on the field, wow, almost all of it was just not really there. The tackling, not very good. The offensive line, not very good. The defense overall, not great. Catching, there was some of that should have been happening more than it was. And even the punting was off. I mean, Mason Crosby, though, the field goal kicking, that was a really solid field goal. But the rest of the team, they just laid a goose egg. It brought back memories of that game, about 5 or 6 years ago, where we should have handily beat the Denver Broncos, and they smacked us around.
It was very sad to see. Everything just made me cringe sitting in my seat watching this game. And I actually watched the game with my brother, who I haven't watched a game with him this season. My wife is out of town, so I had him over to watch the game. And so now I'm starting a whole new superstition saying I should never watch a game with him. This is how stupidly superstitious we are. He wore a jersey to my house, and he hasn't worn a jersey this entire season. And he's like, "Should I take my jersey off? I haven't worn it this season, and they've been winning."
My.
I'm like, "Dude, it doesn't matter." And then at halftime, I said, "Take your jersey off." So
things did get a little bit better.
They started to put something together. We did get a touchdown in there and some field goals, but it was just not enough. They could not put an offensive drive together. It just blew my mind. It did not feel like the same team from last week at all.
It was not. It was not that same team. And fortunately, post-game, Aaron Rodgers did not skirt the issue in any way, shape, or form. Post-game, he said the team weren't focused from the very start and calls this loss a good piece of humble pie for a team that was 7-1 and was on a roll. He actually said this will actually be a good thing for us. We're going to go back home, play another good team before the bye week. And he even alluded to the fact that maybe some of the players on the team, maybe even himself, were buying into the hype and got a little overconfident.
Which is exactly what I told him not to do. If they had listened to my keys for victory last week, maybe this could have been avoided, Wayne. I'm just saying.
Let's hear what you had to say. The Packers Fan Podcast, G-Force, you had some things to share with us as well. You gave us calls at 920-3PACK-GO, but you can also just go to PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback to get in your feedback after we beat the Panthers this coming week.
Go, Pack, go! What's up, guys? Have to be pretty enthusiastic after that. Jared from Ohio. Yeah, like I said in the Facebook thread, I'm sorry. I missed kickoff. It was my fault. I'll take this one on me. But in all seriousness, man, I would say overall, definitely a team loss. A team loss, but I would say mostly on offense and even the special teams. Defensively on that side of the ball, we got to figure out a way to address the run. That has been a consistent Achilles heel for our defense. Thankfully, we've kept it, the defense has been able to keep it close enough for our offense to really clean up. But as we saw tonight, when the offense just doesn't show up at all, it's just not enough. And then the defense ends up getting gassed, which we definitely saw. I mean, there was only so much time before you hold Phillip Rivers and company to just field goals. So definitely pretty frustrating for sure. So I definitely think, defense mostly showed up, but I am pretty concerned about our run defense as a whole, especially, we're a little more than halfway through the season, and we still can't seem to really tighten that up, and especially going up against Christian McCaffrey and the Panthers. I mean, if we don't tighten that up, he's just going to have a field day. So, aside from that, offensively, there's really kind of hard to pick where to start. I just will say as a whole, it just wasn't there. Our offense didn't show up. Special teams had some bad mistakes, but going back to the offense, I mean, aside from just like the real, not being on the same page, it seems just the penalties. My gosh, got to straighten that up. So, I'm going to end this on a high note though. At the end of the day, I know LaFleur is just going to take this, tell the team, be like, all right, this is behind us. Let's move forward and focus on going 1-0 next week. Can't win them all, but hey, that's just the NFL. So, go Pat, go green and gold until I'm dead and cold. And let's see what happens next week. All right.
Thanks so much for the call, Jared. I got a couple things I want to say before I comment on his voicemail. First off, I love that the missed kickoff tradition / superstition is carrying on to our listeners. That just makes me so happy. but even more happy, what makes me even more happy than that is the fact that we had a very rough loss this week, and you guys still came through with voicemails and comments and all that. So that just shows what true Packer fans you guys are, and that we're still supporting this team even after just a rough loss. I agree with what he said about the run defense, especially going in against McCaffrey. I played against McCaffrey in my fantasy football league this week, and he got something like 37 points in my league, which is ridiculous. And that's going to be rough for us. That's going to be very, very rough for us, but hopefully the home crowd will help us out there. And the penalties, my God, I think at the half, someone put a stat in my in my text group that I go back and forth with people and said that we had more penalty yards than we had offensive yards, which is just ridiculous. It's so sad that we were that not together as a team. We've got to get things together and put things in order and make things right.
Yes, because even though our offense was slightly better than the Bears' offense this week, it needs to be a lot better. It is not what we're used to. It's just one of those weeks, and I think we're going to move on with it. Let's see what else came in on the lister line at 920-3-PACK-GO.
Hey, guys. It's semi-superfan Aaron. I'm calling because I just wanted to say what a ridiculous effort that was. And next week, we're going to have an even harder climb. So I just want to know, what do you think about the fact that as soon as Davante Adams, superstar, comes back into the lineup, our offense completely falls apart, forgets its entire identity that it just figured out a few games ago. And I wonder, do you guys agree that Davante Adams, because Aaron Rodgers looks to him so often, is actually a distraction from the offense? Because that's what I'm getting here. And also, our defense is getting a lot of slack this week, but they were on the field the whole game, man. But the run defense definitely needs to figure things out before McCaffrey shows up. But all right, looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Bye.
Aaron, so great to hear from you. That's Aaron Peterson from your Hollywood Outsider podcast. And that summed it up pretty well, Aaron. Ridiculous effort. And things are going to be possibly even harder this coming week as far as run defense. That may need to be the only thing the team focuses on this week. What do you say?
I disagree wholeheartedly. There's a lot of things they need to focus on this week. Should we go back to your lowlights, man, and talk about everything that you just ripped off that we did terrible? Special teams, tackling, offensive line. No. This Adams situation is not the only thing we should be looking at. But yeah, I agree with Aaron 100%. He totally felt like a distraction, which was not what we were expecting. And I think the fact that he was coming back and then we had all these other guys out there for Aaron to throw to, we got overconfident. And we didn't feel like we had to get there in enough time to do proper rest and proper practice, in a different state. And it was a big bummer to see. And I hope that they have learned from this mistake and will not do it again for the remainder of the season.
Hey guys, this is Mark from New Lisbon. I wish I would have called last week after the Kansas City game, but it wasn't good. I'm not panicked like some of the Packer fans. It's just offensively when you have 50 yards in the first half, it's a head scratcher. too many penalties. I don't know if it's the play calling or just the execution of the plays. But I just thought our offensive line got manhandled by Boza and Ingram. So it was an off night. It's not end of the world stuff. And defensively, 26 points sounds bad, but man, they held the field goal so many times. But they just couldn't get off the field when they needed to, and they were on the field too much, and that was partly the offense's fault, that the offense couldn't keep a drive going at all. So our offense really didn't help our defense, and, there has to be some synergy between offense and defense. Special teams, I think our special teams need some help on the return game. I think J.K. Scott and Crosby are excellent. But we do have to get better, on the return game. So overall disappointing. Next week, I think the silver lining is, that we're 7-2 still. San Francisco and New Orleans are ahead of us, so we're third in the conference. And I think, a win next week at home, if we take care of business against Carolina, then we'll be going into the bye week 8-2. And that would be great. So Packer fans, keep your heads up and, go Pack Go. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Mark. Do appreciate that. I love what you said about the defense. I actually wanted to say this back when Aaron's voicemail came in as well, but I'll double it up here with you. The fact that the defense was on the field for what felt like 80% of the game, and I don't even know if that's exaggerating at this point because it was ridiculous. They were just gassed. But the fact that they were able to do that and still keep them to field goals for as long as they did is a testament to them. And I think that is a bit of a silver lining that they were able to keep them out of the end zone. Let's just keep them out of the red zone, though, because it's going to be a key factor, which I will get to later on in the show. Do you agree, Wayne?
I agree, but I will add, just keep them on the other side of the 50-yard line would be even better.
That would solve a lot of problems.
But it was great, Mark, that you made the point of not panicking. I couldn't believe, I know it was a frustrating loss and it was terrible to watch the effort and all the other things going wrong, but taking a peek at Twitter near the end of the game, yikes, you would have thought we were in the Bears position.
Yeah, this is the Packers, guys. They've made mistakes like this before in past seasons. Most of the time, they've learned from their mistakes and gave a good showing. They're still a strong team. They're still very full of camaraderie. They feel more cohesive in every other game they've played, even in our other losses than this one, our other loss, against Philadelphia.
Yeah, let's not go crazy, Scott.
Yeah, we're keeping the faith here. This is the green and gold till we're dead and cold, right? That's the tagline.
Amen to that. And Mark, I would like to know what we can do to make the return game better, because that's another great point that I don't know why we just aren't explosive, if it's the change in some of the rules.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They're keeping them safe from concussions, which I'm all for. But I don't remember the last time I watched a game where there was a run back. I saw some in highlights here and there, but a live game, it just doesn't happen anymore. And that sucks because it was so much fun to watch.
Maybe this week, Scott. Maybe this week.
Hey, you said last week something might happen, and it happened. So, hey, you just keep saying things might happen, and let's keep that train rolling.
Hey, guys. I just want to start off by saying that I don't think our defense played too bad, even though it might have looked like it by the score. They played well the first half for how long the Chargers offense was on the field, only allowing 9. And then once the second half rolled around, they were just so tired. They couldn't stop those 2 touchdowns from coming. This game is really about our offense. It was a wake-up call. We played absolutely terribly. And, man, we just could not get anything going. That Chargers defense hit us hard. And Aaron did not make enough adjustments in the second half to try to stop what they were doing. And I guess we're just going to have to hope for a good game next week. It's the Panthers. They got a good running back. We don't have a great run defense. We'll see what happens. Hope for a good game next week, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go, right at you, mystery caller. Again, how our defense, did okay as far as the aspect of holding the Chargers to field goals early on. Otherwise, it would have been especially ugly if we hadn't done that. But the shocking thing was we didn't really make second half adjustments, or if we did, we weren't able to implement them successfully.
Yeah, that's for sure. There was some improvement a little bit because we did get a touchdown in the third quarter, and things started to look like they were picking up, and then everything fell apart, and it was very sad to watch.
I think we're definitely going to learn from this and bounce back. The Packers usually, when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I don't think we have two bad games in a row. The recent years where we've had a stretch of losses, that was when he was out, and there was just nothing the team could do. I think there's things this team can do. They've proven it all season, and we'll just tune in next Sunday afternoon, another 3:25 p.m. Central game. So stay tuned to that. But first, let's stay tuned to the listener line at 920-3-PACK-GO.
Go, Pack, go! Go, Pack, go! Andre in LA. Hey, guys. What a stinker of a game that we saw today in LA. I don't know if it's something to keep an eye on, but they're 0-2 in LA. I don't know if they get complacent because it feels like a home crowd because the fans are showing up. I mean, I wasn't even at the game today, but I know we took over the stadium basically from what I saw and from what I was reading. It just seems like maybe we made it. I don't know if we should have waited to bring Davante Adams back after the bye week because the offense looked out of sync. They were really forced into Adams. I know some people are going to say, well, the defense gave up 27 points, but the defense was on the field, really 26 points. The defense was on the field all game. I mean, they did whatever the offense, the defense did the best they could. They really didn't give up a lot of points in the red zone until the second half. But by then they were tired. The offense did nothing today. I know Aaron Rodgers had a higher percentage and he did score the one touchdown, but the offensive line didn't do anything. It just felt like the offense was totally out of sync. It was very frustrating to watch. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on. Hopefully the bye week we can kind of shake them off. And let's be honest, we're not going to go undefeated. I mean, we weren't going to win out the rest of the way anyway. But let's, notice our flaws and just correct them. That's how we got to look at it. I'm still loving my team, green and gold, till I'm dead and cold. Go, Pack, go. Andre in LA. Love you guys.
Andre, listen to me, man. That was the best Go, Pack, go you delivered over voicemail since I started doing this podcast. I think it's a little bit of a bummer that we had to have such an awful loss to get that one out of you. But man, I want that Go, Pack, go every single week. That was outstanding. I thought it was a really interesting point he made about keeping Davante off the field until after bye week. I think going into this game, I never would have thought that would have been a good idea because I was very excited about having that extra weapon in there. I don't know. It feels like that was the issue, but it's one of those that we'll never know. But it seemed that would be a bold strategy, Cotton.
But in hindsight, I think the thing that I was most worried about before the game was Davante coming back too early and re-injuring the turf toe.
That too.
And apparently that didn't happen. It was just all the other things that didn't happen. Excellent point, Andre, that with it being a stinker of a game, the Packers are now 0-2 in Los Angeles in recent years, even though the crowds, like at the Coliseum last year, was 50 to 60% Packers fans. And in yesterday's game, it was like 70% or higher Packers fans. And it didn't even make a difference this week. Was the team overconfident thinking it was a home game? I don't know what went wrong. The stadium looked great with all that green and gold, but the defense, like you said, and others mentioned earlier, the defense was on the field all day long.
Very ridiculous. Well, thank you to everybody for all the voicemails. We do appreciate it, but we got some emails coming at you as well. First one came from Caleb and Company, and they say, Caleb, Kathy, and Roy Fisher from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Titletown, USA here. We can't believe the beginning of the game, what was happening to our defense and offense. We were hardly having any success stopping the ball or protecting Rodgers, and it was a gut-wrenching performance. As a diehard Packers fan, we kept thinking that our Packers would show up, but unfortunately, we got dominated by the Chargers. We all know this isn't Packers football, and we didn't play the way we normally do, so we got down, we stayed down. But we'll never give up the schedule. It doesn't get any easier, so we may need to clamp down and push ahead. We made so many mistakes in the beginning that cost us at the end of the game. Until next week, gentlemen, this is the Fishers saying go Pack go and bleeding gold till you're dead and cold.
Caleb and company, thank you so very much for the email. And yes, we can't stay down. It's going to be just fine. I didn't hear Aaron Rodgers say RELAX, but he's not really into repeats. So he's probably working on a new tagline we'll be hearing very soon, I'm hoping. Also got an email from Steven. What was that, Green Bay Packers? Sorry, I'm yelling a bit. His email was in all caps this week. You not only have lost one game, but 2 games before the bye week, which is kind of surprising. But compared to last year, hey, it's only 2 games. And the bye week is really going to be very, very helpful indeed. Stephen continues, the Chargers were coming into this game with a 3-5 record, but now they're 4-5 because Green Bay Packers handed that game as a gift. They start out the game again predictably, winning the coin toss and deferring to the second half. And this is something we've talked about on the podcast for years, Scott, is the Packers do seem to have a knack of winning the coin toss a lot of the time, but we always defer. And before I continue with Steven's email, what's your viewpoint on whether we're on the road or at home? Should that change whether we defer or should we never defer? What do you want to see?
It's a tough call because on one hand, you want to have that first opportunity to draw first blood. On that opening drive, it's just a huge momentum shift right off the beginning of the game. But secondly, I kind of like the idea of getting the ball at the half because you've had 2 quarters of experience with this team, so it feels like a fresh start, and you know where to go and have an even better opportunity to draw that second blood, so to speak, coming out of the half. So I'm kind of for deferring actually because we're going to let them do the thing. And give the Packers an opportunity to stop them on that first down because I think that's even more powerful sometimes to make a huge 3-and-out on that first drive than sometimes even scoring in terms of morale and keeping the team motivated.
Yeah, on the road it can be tricky. At Lambeau Field, I don't think we should ever defer. But
that's interesting. That's a fair point.
But these days, I'm thinking since we're doing so well at winning the coin toss, we should just take the ball and we're going to score. To channel some Matt Hasselbeck right there, but without the interceptions.
We'll take the ball and we're going to score.
What a great moment. I felt so bad for him, but Al Harris, what a play. Steven wraps up by saying, Wayne and Scott, neither of you are going to get any points this week as you both picked the Packers to win, and yet they lost by 15 points to the Chargers. Yeah, that's pretty much how it's going to play out.
Yeah, well, technically I picked them twice, so it doubly hurts me this week.
And Wayne and Scott, you have to think and pick very carefully for the Panthers game this coming week. And with that, I want to remind you the deadline to get in your voicemails and emails to be part of next week's show is Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Central, give or take a few minutes. We don't just turn the phones off. The podcast won't be complete without your thoughts. We heard great emails and voicemails this week, and we want yours next week. Keep this number handy. It's 920-3-PACK-GO. Thank you again for your support. Our weekly poll on Twitter and in the Packers Fan Podcast community Facebook group, should the Packers spend any or much time watching yesterday's game video? And I do want to get your thoughts, Scott, before I dig into the results from the listeners that voted.
Well, your choices here were don't need to watch it all, watch once and move on, watch it every day this week. Those are the 3 choices, and I am in the camp of watching it every day this week. I think that they owe the fans some penance at this point, and watch the entire game once a day
with commercials.
With commercials, the stupid. I'm not gonna make a potential future sponsor angry by saying I don't like their commercials, but you know which commercials I'm talking about that I'm not a big fan of. So yeah, watch the game every day and just look at the atrocity that you guys did on the field. And I know that's easy for me to say as an armchair coach sitting with my beer in my hand on my couch saying what an awful job you did because I would get creamed out there. But it was very painful to watch.
Very painful indeed. And I think the Packers, they felt terrible after the game as well. There wasn't a lot of smiles going around, no matter way you look at it. Personally, my vote goes with the one that came in last place. I'm surprised. I thought this would win by a landslide. I don't think they need to even watch the tape at all. Just burn the tape, the digital bits, just get them out of there. That choice got 20% of the vote. 28% of the vote said watch it once, then move on. But the overwhelming majority are with you again, Scott. 52% of the voters said watch it every day this week.
Do it.
Monica voted on Twitter and added, I'd rather see them lose now and learn their lesson than seeing them lose in a playoff game. And I think that is the absolute perfect way to look at it.
Yeah, get those losses out of your system now. Well, it matters slightly less. Jared also responded and said, watch it, but from a learning point of view as opposed to a shame on you type of thing. Pick at least 3 big things to fix and use that to prep for next matchup. These are my picks, mainly because they've been brewing under the surface, and the Chargers managed to hone in and make them painfully apparent. Number 1, Jared says, tighten the heck out of the run defense. It's been an issue since the beginning of the season against the Vikings when Dalvin Cook ran up and down the field. Thanks for bringing that back up. He goes on to say, granted, they've had some weeks holding good running backs at low production, but it has by no means been consistent. This will at least force a passing game more and give the Smiths more opportunities to do their thing. Number 2, offensively, protect the quarterback. This hasn't necessarily been a season-long issue, but my goodness, tonight and last week have been absolutely atrocious. The entirety of the offense wasn't clicking tonight, but the line's inability to protect Rodgers will kill any offensive drive, regardless of the quarterback. And number 3, tackle. So many runs have been extended by 2 to 5 yards per play because of this inability to tackle properly. Jared, I love everything you said right there and agree wholeheartedly.
And Janelle commented on the poll saying, we've nitpicked little things every game leading up to this one, and it's like it all imploded. Thankfully, we're still number 1 in our division, and we can take this horrible loss and learn from it. I truly believe they will and turn it around like after the Eagles loss, but this time we need to keep it up. We are a great football team, and we need to play like one and continue doing so every week consistently.
Hear, hear.
More excellent points. Thank you very much, Janelle. So, moving all the way forward. To heck with the Chargers. That's in the past. We're not going to see them in the Super Bowl. Your 7-2 Green Bay Packers host the 5-3 Carolina Panthers Sunday, 3:25 p.m. Central. The Packers lead the all-time series 9-6, including the first time we ever played them, which was the NFC Championship game in January of 97. You remember that one? Freezing cold game. The Packers won that one 30-13 to go on to the Super Bowl with Brett Favre and beat those Patriots.
Such good memories.
No, great memories. Cam Newton likely won't be the quarterback behind center on Sunday. In fact, according to Ian Rappaport last night, the good news is that Cam Newton may not need surgery on his foot. The bad news is his season may be over. However, like you heard earlier, they still have Christian McCaffrey, so there's that.
Yeah, like I mentioned against when we talked about the game against the Chiefs, I will never wish harm or injuries on any player, no matter what team they're on. But this is good news for us that Cam's not playing. But Christian McCaffrey, I think, is an even bigger threat. If he has a week like he had last week, we're in for some trouble for sure.
It may turn into a shootout. Like they'll be scoring rushing touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers will be throwing long bombs, and whoever scores the most usually wins. So we'll see. Combining the bye week and the upcoming road games, this is the last home game for the Packers until December 8th.
Wow.
So we need to make it count. Get loud, Lambeau, but only when Carolina is on offense or when we score. When Aaron Rodgers and the offense is on the field, shh, be quiet. Hold it down, people. Simmer. Now, much like how the Panthers bounced back from their embarrassment in Frisco to win yesterday, hopefully the Packers will do the same this Sunday after what happened, yesterday. The game time weather is totally different. All of a sudden it's wintertime. It's football weather at Lambeau, people. Mostly cloudy and 33 degrees Fahrenheit at kickoff. That's less than 1 degree Celsius. That's the opposite of what they witnessed in LA yesterday.
For sure, man. That is football weather right there. That'll be a good game to be at too. I would love to be there. Can't make it.
You would have to train people on how to dress warmly because that's pretty cold.
You probably don't even own a winter coat, do you? Being out there in California.
Where would I get one? I guess, on
exactly.
Amazon. But
I'm going to have to buy you one.
I do have a leather jacket, and that's for when it's really cold here.
I don't know, man. It gets really cold here. We wear layers when we go up to Lambeau. It's ridiculous. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the keys to an 8th Packers victory as we head into the Panthers game at Lambeau. First off, number 1, learn from this devastating loss. We've been mentioning it all this episode. And Rodgers already called this game a slice of humble pie. It's important to learn from our mistakes and bounce back for the Lambeau proud. We've just got to do that. Take this game as a educational opportunity and look at it as that. Secondly, contain Christian McCaffrey. This is a no-brainer. He's been a monster most of the season, and this past week was no exception. Our defensive line and tackling needs to be on point if we're going to keep him out of the end zone. We have to stop the run. It has to happen. And lastly, keep that defense off the field. They may have kept them out of the end zone for most of the game by forcing field goals instead, but they were gassed by the third quarter. It wasn't their fault since the offense just couldn't get first downs. We have to drive down the field with short passes, utilize Jones and Williams in between to mix up the plays and chew up the clock. That way, when our defense is called on, they're well-rested and able to stop the Panthers' offense before they get within field goal range. I'm going to add one other thing on there, too. Throw to somebody else besides Adams. Spread that ball around, man. I love it, those games where they show the number of times he's passed to each player, and there's like 8 players on that screen. That is what's going to get these games won, is when he's throwing to as many targets as possible. I know he's probably looking for somebody that's open, and these guys just aren't getting open. The Chargers secondary was looking really solid this game. And with that, we're going to move on to our crazy game predictions. And to do that, we got something a little special for you. Our buddy Rick up in Wisconsin, who happens to be a Panthers fan for some reason, but we still love you, actually put together a little segment to introduce this part of the show. So take it away, Rick.
Hey, this is Rick Snowdy, known as Rick from Wisconsin on Twitter. And I'm calling with some feedback about the upcoming game with the Panthers and the Packers, because I am a diehard Carolina Panthers fan, and I listened to several different Panthers podcasts, and there was a story on there recently where they asked one of the former players about traveling to other places and how they were treated by fans, and he mentioned that Green Bay had the best fans, that even after they won a game there, they would come out of the stadium and have people offer them a brat that were still tailgating after the game. So I thought that was a really great thing to hear about the Packers and the way the fans were there. Everyone in Charlotte on all the shows and sports radio that I listen to from there has a great amount of respect for Green Bay. But after the game that Green Bay had today, I would say not to take anything for granted, but they have a good chance unless Green Bay bounces back and plays like they did the last couple weeks. So this game has big wild card implications. The rest of Carolina's season, they have to play the Saints twice because they're in their division, and they have to play the Seahawks, and they've already lost to the Rams, and those are all teams that are in the playoff mix. The Packers have the 49ers and the Vikings ahead of them. So this game for both teams could be important as far as how they may end up if the Packers can win the division or if Carolina can get a playoff spot as a wild card team. So since Ron Rivera has been the coach of the Panthers, they've played each other 4 times, twice in Green Bay, twice in Charlotte. Carolina has won both games in Charlotte, won by 7 points and won by 8 points. So I would imagine a close game is to be found, but the last time they played in Green Bay, I think the Packers won by 21 points. The Carolina Panthers right now are on a pretty good run. Kyle Allen is 6-1 as a starter, and he's only had that one bad game when they played the 49ers where he committed 3 interceptions. Those are the only interceptions until today. He had one more. But that one really came off the receiver's hand, so I don't count it against him. It wasn't like it was a bad throw. And the Carolina defense has had 10 interceptions so far this season, and I don't remember how many sacks, but I think in their wins, their 5 wins this season, they've got something like 18 sacks altogether. So if they can get to Rodgers, it will make a difference. and it could really mess up Green Bay's game after seeing how they played today. Panthers' defense is a little vulnerable to the run. They've had a couple teams that got a decent amount of yards on them, but Christian McCaffrey is the key to Carolina's offense. Even in their loss to the 49ers, he was averaging 6 yards a carry. They just stopped handing the ball to him because they had gotten in such a big hole that they had to try to throw to get out of it with the time remaining in the game. So I'm going to predict that if Carolina plays like they did today and the Packers play like they did today, Carolina will win the game. But if Green Bay bounces back, it probably be a close one-score game, and I'm not really sure who would win. Thanks.
Rick, thank you so much for helping us get inside the mind of the opponent and submitting that. And thanks for reminding us that Green Bay has the best fans for traveling road teams. I've seen that in action. Even when I went to Lambeau Field and the Bears came to town, the Bears fans, they were fairly nice, and the Packers fans were nice to them. It's not like when you go to, say, a Chargers game and you wear a Raiders jersey or something.
Also, I wanted you to take note of something that Rick did. Did you notice this, Wayne? Rick was able to accept the fact that the Packers could win this game, that his team possibly could lose. Did you notice that?
I did notice that. That's bonkers.
Just saying.
And he did bring up wild card implications. Does that mean he's talking about playoffs?
Playoffs?
And yeah, that's interesting. They still have to play their 2 games in the division against the Saints. I don't know how long the Saints can stay on this roll, but
yeah, they're looking really good. And who knew that Teddy Bridgewater was gonna look so awesome over there? I mean, I know that Breeze is back now. Yes, he played this week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got an awesome starting quarterback. You got a great backup quarterback. They're poised to do some difficult things, and like I said, that could be some very big wild card implications this game for sure.
And like Rick mentioned, I had no idea that Carolina has 10 interceptions this year.
That makes me a little nervous, but that also makes me think that we need to focus on the run game a little bit more this week. We've got Aaron Jones. We've got Jamal Williams, who, by the way, can also catch.
That was amazing. Yes. Whenever I see either a wide receiver stepping outside of the box, running the ball, just getting a handoff, that's cool. But I think it is even cooler when a running back runs down the field, makes a great catch, and helps win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So with that segment, thanks again, Rick. Let's dig into our predictions, because this week, well, we both picked the Packers to beat the Chargers, so neither of us get a point, and we'll just move on with Scott in the lead, 4-3 for now. What do you see happening this week at Lambeau?
I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I think that the Packers are going to be on fire and ready to come back and win this thing. I really do. But I also think that Christian McCaffrey is just going to run all over our defense. I think it's going to be old-school football, running against running. It's just leatherheads out there on the field. I say that the Panthers will get 27. The Packers will edge them out by 3 with the score of 30. So 30-27 in favor of the Packers.
Calling for a 3-point margin of victory. I am taking it all into consideration, but will still pick the Packers to win this game 24-21. Fairly high scoring, but not as high as yours, though I would like to see your score. But
mine is a bold prediction.
Bold, I tell you. 24-21, another 3-point margin of victory. So math may come into our calculations next week, Scott.
It may. We'll have to see what happens.
Some listener thoughts and things that came into the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group. Be sure to join that at packerscommunity.com. Got an update on the listener-submitted ideas for what you talked about on the last episode about what to call a fumble recovery going in for a touchdown. And make sure you pass these along to your father-in-law, Scott. Matt suggested, how about the scoop and score?
Not bad.
How about the grab and go?
Yeah, that's good.
What about the scoop 6?
I think that might be my favorite.
The scoop 6.
Scoop 6, got a pick 6 and a scoop 6. I like it.
They kind of are in the same family. And on Twitter, strip 6 was recommended.
Well, that has some innuendos built into there, I think. So that probably won't make it to network television, the Strip 6.
Okay, well, make sure you pass them all along to your father-in-law. He's the one that gets to choose.
Well, hey, he's listening to this, so he'll hear it himself, man. He's a dedicated listener, man. I got family listening to me now.
I love it.
Also, Chris Jackie's fan page joined the Packers Fan Podcast community Facebook group, which was really awesome to see. Man, Chris Jackie was a household name when I was a kid. Hall of Famer, won Super Bowl 31. That was really cool to see. Chris, if you're listening, we would love to talk to you on the show, man. If you were willing, please hit us up. It would be awesome to talk to you and an honor.
Yes, and it was Scott Bors that shared that stat from Packers history, how they've lost their last 6 games that have occurred the weekend of daylight savings time. So they need to just make that stop.
Absolutely. If you'd like to join the conversation, please head over to our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community and be a part of the conversation at packerscommunity.com. We got lots of great conversations and posts, including our weekly post to discuss the game as it happens. What we like to do is create one single post in the Facebook group for game day, and then we just all kind of have a little conversation going, like a live feed almost. It's a lot of fun to get in there, and when they win, it's a lot more fun. I'll be honest.
Well, true.
But we did a lot of complaining this week.
We just had to get it out, cleanse ourselves.
Yeah.
There was also a link shared to the great Charles Woodson and Al Harris article, how they are both going into the Packers Hall of Fame. And those are no-brainers. Charles Woodson and Al Harris, Packers Hall of Fame, for sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of other Packer players, Leroy Butler was looking for Packers fans to join, or Packers fans groups to join. So we humbly suggested the Packers Fan Podcast community. We're waiting to see if he joins. It would be amazing if he did.
That would be fantastic. Leroy Butler and Chris Jackie.
Bring it, man.
Stuff.
Bring it.
Packers greats. So be looking for that live Game Time chat thread. Already have one program to go live next Sunday morning, and we can go along with the game as it unfolds against the Panthers. There's that and more, all at packerscommunity.com.
Before we wrap up, let's go ahead and talk about some just general NFL things happening out in the league. First off, every team in the NFC North lost yesterday. I don't remember the last time that's happened. And I know that sounds awful, and it's not making our division look very good. However, that's kind of the silver lining that we talked about, is that even though we lost, we are still 7-2. We are still a full game ahead of Minnesota in the division. So it's not all doom and gloom at this point. We're still on top, baby.
Yeah, we still are a game ahead of the Vikings, and we own the tiebreaker at this point. Mm-hmm. So that's even a little more breathing room. I do want to make up ground on the 49ers and on the Saints. It'll come in time. And I believe I mentioned on the podcast last week something along the lines of how the Patriots would be in trouble when they actually had to play a good team like the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. And
very thankful that the Ravens took care of business and beat those Patriots last night handily. That made the Sunday loss to our loss to the Chargers a little bit better by at least having the Patriots lose too.
Oh, absolutely. And now because of that, the 49ers are the only undefeated team left in the entire league, which is interesting. And also the Dolphins got their first win of the season over the Jets yesterday. So they're still hanging on to that first round draft pick, right?
Wow. And after the Dolphins won that game, the XFL that is coming back next January, they posted out a savage tweet congratulating the Dolphins on that first victory and hinted that they were thinking of saying something really snarky about the Jets, but decided not to since some of their players might be in the XFL next season.
Apparently whoever runs the Wendy's Twitter account must have made that post, because that was that level of burn. It was pretty funny.
That was pretty epic. And as far as the 49ers being undefeated, remember, they have not had their bye week yet. They will eventually get tired. But the biggest head scratcher to me is the Browns. With so much talent, I thought they could be a possible Super Bowl contender this year, but they are imploding.
Yeah, it's really a bummer. I feel like I don't remember the last time that the Browns were a contender. I can't remember as a kid. As a kid, I only watched the Packers games. I didn't really pay attention to the whole league. Once I became an adult and got into fantasy football and started really paying attention to the inner workings, I just don't remember them being relevant. And they're like a football staple, aren't? I mean, they've been around for forever. So
yeah, and I like them. I think they're fun to watch. I like Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield. Defense is having issues, but we won't get into those because who knows. So the NFC North right now, Packers 7-2, Vikings 6-3. The Lions still in third place with their amazing record of 3-4-1, and the Bears at 3-5.
Man, they are just colossally awful, by the way.
Wow, their fans are turning on them. Trubisky's having struggles. Something's inside of his head. Well, they'll figure something out. They will figure something out. But I have a question for you. Have you gotten into the zone yet? And I'm not talking about your local automotive parts store. I'm talking about the Castle Rock Zone. That's the podcast we do devoted to Stephen King's Castle Rock TV series on Hulu. Boy, there are some disturbing things happening on Castle Rock this season on Hulu. Tune in to hear all the gory details at castlerockzone.com.
Also, if you love to play video games as much as I do, please be sure to check out my other podcast, The Gaming Outsider, which can be heard at the same places you listen to this one. Shortly after this episode airs, you can hear me talk about a new adventure game called After Party. It's a really hilarious game about two college students that go to hell and try to work their way out by challenging the devil to a drinking contest. No, I'm not making that up. That is actually a real video game. We're also discussing the legendary Hideo Kojima and his list of innovative games that he's contributed for the past few decades. If any of that sounds interesting, please check out the show and also all of our written reviews over at thegamingoutsider.com. Packers great Willie Wood, good old number 24, did great, awesome things for the Green Bay Packers. And listener Bryant is doing some awesome things for the Packers Fan Podcast with his continued support of the show at the $24 Willie Wood pledge level. Can I get a Go Pack Go?
Go Pack Go!
Would you be surprised that our $12 Patreon level is modeled after our legendary quarterback Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. But also not surprising is that brilliant $12 monthly Patreon support by our friends in the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics, a Facebook group. Go Pack Go.
And our Brett Favre $4 Patreon support level includes these gunslingers, channeling Favre and putting their money in the old Patreon, Jeff Summerfield and Lawrence Harvey. And at the $1 a month Curly Lambeau level, Joe Christensen, Hank Davis, Aaron Peterson, and Matt Haig.
Check out how you too can financially support the podcast at a level to match your budget and even get some fun Packers Fan Podcast logo merch. Details at patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast. Thanks, and Go Pack Go.
We want to remind you the Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast is not yet affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. Just saying.
Also, you can follow us on Twitter at PackersFanPod, or you can follow me at GoCastScott or Wayne himself at Wayne Henderson. And please join our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community by visiting PackersCommunity.com and join the conversation.
Because we want you to be part of the next episode, let your voice be heard. Get in your feedback by Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Central. Go to PackersFanPodcast.com, click the Contact Us button for all the details, or simply give us a call at 920-3PACK-GO. Thanks again for spending time with us this week, talking about a loss of all things, but having fun doing it because we are looking forward to a victory next week. Thanks again for listening to the Packers Fan Podcast.
Be sure to subscribe in your podcast player of choice so you don't miss an episode. And finally, it is time for our Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics group to get us ready to beat the Panthers.
This is Dawn down here in Texas, a.k.a. Granny Cheese.
Hi, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Kim.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Hi, I'm Lisa Montgomery, and we want to say,
Go Pack Go!
Check out how you too can financially support the podcast at a level to match your budget and even get some fun Packers Fan Podcast logo merch. and even get some fun Packers Fan Podcast.
Logo.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.